For anyone visiting and living in central Tokyo, come visit the Nakameguro Tap Room from Baird Brewery. Opened in 2008, Nakameguro Tap Room is the first Tokyo area tap room from Baird Brewery. Their kitchen specializes in New Haven-style apites, which I have told you is the best style of Neapolitan pizza. New Haven style places a high emphasis on high temperature baking, fresh seasonal toppings, and a crispy light crust. Combined with all the classic Japan-based Baird beers on tap, enjoy all vintage beer hall feels at Nakameguro Tap Room. There's even a sofa area and a large TV screen great for sporting events. Only a 2-minute walk from Nakameguro Station, the tap room is open daily until 10 p.m. For more information, visit bairdbeer.com.
You know, there's so many ramen restaurants, right? Tokyo, for everyone's reference and your reference, there's about 3,000 to 4,000 in Tokyo. The Tokyo metro area, if we include Saitama, Kanagawa, Chiba, it's about 8,000. So there's plenty of choices. I think for me, of course, like it has to be delicious. It has to be delicious. They have to be, you know, maybe open to receiving a group of people, right? Three, also, it has to work logistically. And I say this because the original tours, like I called it the Insider Ramen Tour, this tour format was basically I sit down with people for coffee for the first hour. Okay. We talk about ramen history. There's a ramen quiz. And I will present, you know, maybe 5 ramen shops in that particular neighborhood. And I'll be like, hey, this is what this place is known for. I've got little graphs and stuff with their strengths. So that would be the Insider Ramen Tour. I took it. I looked at everything with a magnifying glass. So that was like the first tour, right? But eventually what it evolved into, or I should say what became the most popular tour, was a ramen tasting tour where I would partner with ramen shops and provide small portions, 1/4 size of your standard ramen bowl, a mini ramen tour, if you will. So now the most popular tour is exactly that, visiting 3 ramen shops for 6 mini bowls. And for that, it definitely is important for me to work with ramen shops, you know, that are open-minded, right? They, you know, some ramen shops of that 8,000, let's say, would be like, what are you talking about? Small portions, why would we even bother? So all those things I mentioned, I think that's what basically brought me to the ramen tasting tour.
Hey there. Welcome to Made in Japan, Conversations with Meljo Catalan. This is my podcast about Japan, but it's not just your run-of-the-mill cool Japan podcast. I want to explore a side of Japan besides sushi and sumo, anime, and video games. I'm here to extrapolate and meditate with the local people that your travel guide probably doesn't touch on. People that are hungry for making it, and people that have made it. This podcast is my talks with them. Hello there. Welcome to the Made in Japan podcast. I am your wacky host, Meljo Catalan. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. It's good to have you along. First off, I just wanted to say Made in Japan podcast is mostly a donation-based podcast. So if you can, please visit ko-fi.com/madeinjapanpodcast. That's ko-fi.com/madeinjapanpodcast. All donations goes to the production and the beverages for my guest. And other news is that when this episode comes out, I am probably going to have a new YouTube channel. I realize that I know some listeners prefer to use YouTube to listen to some podcasts, so I'm going to just start with this episode. It's going to be just audio format, but maybe down the line I'll think about doing some type of video medium. But, you know, I just like to keep it in the audio form, but who knows? We'll see how, you know, if the video tickles my fancy, I guess. But yeah, just to let you all have, you know, get a heads up, I am going to start a YouTube channel. So most likely it's going to be Made in Japan podcast. But let's move on. I know you are here getting fired up for my next guest, and what a wonderful guest that we have on today. he goes by the name of Frank Striegl. Frank is the founder of 5 a.m. Ramen. It's basically a ramen blog, and Frank is the ramen wandering warrior through Japan and Tokyo, of course. He goes around Tokyo and throughout Japan, tasting and making ramen blog posts for different types of ramen. So with that coincidingly, he also does ramen tours. So for those of you who are really interested in ramen, this is the episode for you. So yeah, I'm just going to let Frank tell his story. And without further ado, this is Frank Striegl, the founder of 5 a.m. Ramen. And here we go. Thank you for coming out, Frank.
No, thank you for having me. My God.
Well, I'm gonna call out the elephant in the room. I'm still a firm believer that you really don't like ramen.
Oh, I hate it. I can't stand it. It's all a facade. It's all part of the.
I look at your videos, and I'm like, I swear, after they say cut, he spits out the noodles on the floor, and he's like, man, I am tired of this job.
It's disgusting. I'm actually more of a pasta guy.
No.
Wait, hopefully this isn't edited in such a way that my sarcastic face is, maybe not capturing me.
Don't worry about it. We'll get it going. But like, here's my actual real first question is, do you like bok choy?
I do like bok choy, yeah. I'm a fan. Yeah, for sure.
I know when we first met, we started talking about the Philippines a little bit.
Yeah,
I knew you were Filipino American, but I wonder if he knows one of my favorite soul foods. I'm from Iloilo City.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you said bok choy for a second. Bok choy.
No, not bok choy.
Bok choy. Yeah.
Bok choy.
Like La Paz. Yeah. Okay.
And that's my roots. That's my family. I was literally born in La Paz.
Yeah.
There's a hospital there. And that was probably, I left the Philippines when I was 6 years old. And my memories of my Lola, because my parents were living in Africa at that time. My mom gave birth to me in La Paz, went back to Nigeria, so going back to work. So my grandma, my Lola, was taking care of me. And my first memory of a noodle bowl was going into the wet market and she would buy her fish, she would buy her vegetables, and when she took me to the original La Paz place, and I was like 5, 6 years old, and I was like, what is this magical golden bowl? Fast forward 20 years, I'm in Japan, and my first ramen bowl was like, it was like Coco ramen. It was very fancy, right?
Yeah.
Not the same, but I was like my brain was sparks, like it was like a time travel. Like,
Right.
This was like bok choy.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, because we're here about this. I was wondering about you. Did you ever? Yeah. What's your experience?
I was thinking. First of all, cheers.
Cheers, bud. Yeah.
And excuse me. As to that's that question. I'll point out before maybe that moment where there was that connection, but the brain sparking.
I want to know your brain spark.
Well, I'm going to point out one. There's actually a ramen restaurant in Manila that does that as a ramen. It's even called La Paz ramen. I think I'm not even joking. I've had it there. I actually met the owner there, and you should check it out. It's in it's in San Jose, I think. Oh my God! Real quick, let's see. Of course, I'm typing in San Jose ramen. It's gonna show California before Manila as I'm on my phone here.
That's crazy. La Paz ramen. Did they call it La Paz ramen?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's what.
That's insane.
Let's see. Yes, Oyasumi Ramen. There it is. I actually wrote a blog post about this place. So if you have a chance, Oyasumi Ramen, they do exactly that. It is crazy, yeah. And of course, it's very tasty. Yeah.
So, I mean, this leads to me when you were a kid growing up.
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in Tokyo. Mom's Filipino, so I did eat a lot of Filipino dishes at home. But the fondest memories I have of like ramen are her making Sapporo Ichiban at home, shio, miso in particular,
did she, like, spice it up?
Shoyu. Yeah, spice it up in terms of like she would add like fresh vegetables, egg, just making it healthier, so fresh toppings. But just those smells, MSG included, right? You gotta love it, as I think it's part of the experience. So that's my earliest like memory of ramen, right? My mom cooking in the kitchen, just those associated smells, the sights and sounds, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Man, okay. So, like, if you don't mind me asking, like, what brought your mom and your parents to Japan? Like, what was your...
No, for sure. So they actually, they traveled a lot, and they met in Singapore, and they at one point decided to settle down in Japan, and they're actually both teachers. So they were teaching in Japan at an international school, and decided to stay here. And then, fast forward, I was born here, my brother as well.
Okay. Did you go to the same school?
I did.
How was that?
I think it's always difficult, when your parents teach at the school, especially when you're younger, well, I guess older too, right? Because, kids are going to be like, but, I guess, I didn't have too many issues. Like it was, of course you have smart Alex and stuff like that, but no big issues. So dad was a math teacher. I'm horrible at math. Clearly didn't get that gene.
And here we are.
Mom was an elementary school teacher. Okay. Doing everything.
I just was so fascinated about I've met many people very similar stories like in Tokyo, and so I first and foremost want to give a quick shout out to But Where Are You Really From? A podcast. I stumbled upon them because I was just like doing a little bit of research, and one thing that really just connected with me was you mentioned about your identity and more like a gift as being a chameleon. And when I was listening to it, I freaked out because we all, as an Asian American, living in Connecticut, upper middle class Connecticut. So I've always realized that was growing up. It was hard. But I also said that I felt like my power was being a chameleon too. But like secretly, like me and my brothers and sisters, like we knew how to behave in certain social groups and switch it up. And so it was like.
Hey, cheers to that. Cheers to that.
It's kind of weird when you use that metaphor, and I'm like, man, he's like understanding, like he's vibing what I'm vibing about too.
Right. Interesting. No, I think even though we grew up in different parts of the globe, right, like that similar experience, right, not being from there. And being able to, as you said, as a chameleon, relative to who you're with, like kind of taking on.
Like it was like telepathy with that. Like, wait, we think the same. Like it's weird.
So there was another spark in your headphones when you're listening to that.
But here now in Japan, your life in Japan, and you mentioned it. I think the same way as well, like whether I'm floating in like a mostly foreigner group of people, or I'm just like mostly with like a deep down in Shitamachi like community, with a bunch of just my family, my Japanese family. So do you feel that way too?
Yeah, I think it's nice to be able to go back and forth too, right? I think like you just mentioned two examples where like you have access to both sides, and maybe not everyone has access to that, right? Like if you don't speak a certain level of Japanese, not that you need to, but like speaking Japanese, for example, or having family that's Japanese, it gives you access to that, right? Maybe there are some people that live here that might not speak the language and will not be able to do that, right? Kind of dive a little bit deeper in the same regard, maybe Japanese that have never spoken to a foreigner before, right? So it is kind of fun to go back and forth in that regard. Absolutely, I feel the same way. Yeah.
So this leads me to your company, ramen. You've been tour guides and like you're loving ramen. So we got to go because I think what you're trying to do is trying to bridge that connection. I think most people will understand it. I'm not here, Frank, to just like tell, I'm not here to like ask you like, what is ramen? No. There's a lot of like resources for that. I'm here to want to know about you. Like, where did that spark? Like, okay, I really want to show people about ramen. When did that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, aside from that Sapporo Ichiban memories, right? I think I really only started to appreciate ramen at a much later age. As an adult, it's just like, wow, there's so many different styles. Like, you can really go deep down the ramen rabbit hole, if you will. Like, there's just so much to be learned. And I think, that's, of course, tied to Japan, right? I mean, when people really dedicate themselves to, like, a craft, like, it's insane, like, how many directions you can really go in. And that's what we've seen with ramen. It's got a relatively young history, and it's something that continues to evolve and get better and better. And that's maybe what separates ramen from some other Japanese noodle dishes where it's like, this is sushi, this is not sushi, Ramen, it's, I always mention this, but ramen, it's not so simple. And as such, it's given rise to a lot of different ramen styles. And that's what I find fascinating ramen. And I think as an adult, that was my sort of moment. I can't put a particular like timestamp on it. Like, okay, it was at this moment I was like, wow. But as an adult, I'm like, ramen is so cool. There's so much to learn. And that's kind of what got me hooked.
Try to be as poetic as possible. Right?
Yes. Oh, boy.
Ramen is...
life, but that's so cheesy. That's like, I know. I was like avoiding that one. That's so boring. It's like, I was like, oh god, I don't want to do his life. And then I'm like, and then 4 seconds later, I'm like, that's all I have.
I was like,
I think I need more beer. If you give me 4 more beers, I will be as poetic. I will be like Yeats. I will be. Oh my god, it'll be. He show you ramen river flows like a majestic.
And it's like, Frank is now selling t-shirts at Tokyo Station.
Ramen is life. No one will buy them. No one will buy them for good reason.
Next to the Tokyo bananas.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Tokyo bananas. Like, people are buying those, even if like it's not really. And for everyone's reference, like, you go to Tokyo Station, right? There's always, there's like omiyage, right? Basically, souvenirs from whatever region of Japan you visited. So if you maybe have forgotten to buy something, sometimes at Tokyo Station, right, you can find omiyage that might be from that region. Anyways, Tokyo has its own omiyage. It's like Tokyo banana. It's like, what is it? It's like a cream-filled kind of like pastry.
Pastry, like a shortbread?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, something like that. But it's totally like, it has nothing to do. It's kind of like Tokyo. It's like people sat down in a boardroom and say, all right, like, let's come up with something for Tokyo. Like, I don't know why it's bananas. It's good, but yeah, it doesn't really. Anyways, yeah, like,
even more like, it's funny, like, if you go visit Tokyo and you go back to where you're living and you give like your relatives that souvenir, Tokyo banana, some people will be a little bit disappointed. Like,
you go to another part, you go to Shizuoka, for example, right? And it's like, oh yeah, this company, they've been making dried bonito flakes for hundreds of years. Here it is, this beautiful packaging, and it's like, hey, I came to Tokyo, here's a banana. So and again, they're very delicious, right? There's just not the history there. Yeah, it's kind of like a strange.
Well, it's like going to New York and coming back and like giving you a I love New York.
It's very touristy. So my Ramen is Life t-shirts would be in the same section, I think. Actually, they'd probably be in a storeroom, like not even like on display. No. They're like, how do we sell these? This is not working out. Give me 10 minutes. Hopefully it'll come back. A better ramen is blank than what I just said.
Oh, I'm crying now. You made me cry. But anyways, Frank. So let's go. No, let's go back. let's talk about 5 a.m. ramen.
Yeah.
Like how did you get it going? Because I know I can imagine being like a tour guide. It's like a tough business here, right? Like I don't really know.
Yeah.
So like can you like walk me through like how did you get your business going? You know, like,
absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, so 5amramen.com is basically like a blog. This ramen shop is here. This is what they serve. This is a good reason to visit. So basically like a blog. Tokyo Ramen Tours.com as well is basically when people are visiting Japan, or even for people that live here, like taking them to the best ramen shops in a more organized and structured tour format. So I was working at a job, a desk job, if you will, like so many of us, and at one point I started doing the tours while I was doing that job. Ramen tours. This is pre-COVID, of course, mind you. It was. And I was like, wow, this is actually lucrative, I can marry my love of ramen and also, have a sustainable income from this. So I decided at one point to leave the job that I was in and do the tours full time.
So what, did you just make a website and then...
Exactly.
I don't know, do marketing? I don't know, advertising for your social
Well,
media?
my wife probably helped me with the website a lot. I'm like a 70-year-old man. I've gotten much better. I'm like, what's this little button here? What does this do? But yes, like long story short, absolutely. Like built a website. I use different tools like Airbnb, for example, to be like, hey, these are ramen tours we're doing. You can book through Airbnb, and then eventually, like at one point, with the website, got a lot more direct bookings. So that became full-on business.
Talk to me about your very first tour. Like, were you nervous about it?
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't even remember. Well, I like to joke around a lot, but I'm actually like very calculating in that, before the first official tour, I did several trial tours with friends. Like, kind of like, hey, give me some feedback. This is let's do a live trial. That kind of thing.
Like role play, like being like,
Oh my God, my wife was the best role play. She was brilliant. She was like, oh my God, she was like perfect because she would ask all the great questions, and also just kind of put me. No, it's what I needed, right? Like she is so brilliant, like with that stuff. So she was the best role player.
That was awesome. It's like take me to the best gluten-free ramen shop right now.
Thankfully, I didn't get that question because then we would be on a train. I'd be like, there are maybe 2 gluten-free ramen shops in all of Japan, right? Like as you know, right? It's not even though a lot of Japanese too are finding out they're not able to eat gluten, right?
Well, let's give a shout out to Ali because I think this is the main reason why you're here.
Yes.
So because Ali, if ever your listeners go back to episode 45. Wonderful guest too, by the way, and it brings up the question like, how do you put up with her? Like, I mean, she's amazing, and she's really. I see her like she's like a powerhouse when I talk to her, right? So like, I can imagine her being like that. Role playing and just like this like stickler client, like. I'm not really satisfied.
Absolutely. I think like it's maybe more like how does she put up with me? Probably it's a better question. I always joke with her like, babe, I think I'm more of an introvert. And she's like she like gives you this like eye rolling. So during the pandemic, when I didn't have the tours, picture me and her at home and me yapping on ramen. I think I like shio today, like shio ramen. I haven't eaten. So like for her, like dealing with me, like an extrovert at home, like with no outlet, with no tours, too, right? That's another subject, but it's probably just as much. How does she put up with me as it is like me putting up with her?
I was just curious. I'm like, it's been really intense.
For sure.
Household was really intense.
I think with any couple, right? Sure, the same with both of you, right? Like, you both work together as a team, right? You both have your strengths and weaknesses, and for me, it was very challenging, of course, during the pandemic, right? That's a separate subject, but having someone that's willing to support you during those tough times, right? It goes both ways, of course, right? That's what makes you, of course, a strong couple, right? Yeah, being there for the other person, right? Whether it's the form of being a critical role-playing tour guest or client, right? That's going to help you grow, right? Or someone that's like, hey man, like the sun will be shining brightly again when tourism is back, whatever it is, right? That support. She was everything.
That's great.
And she is everything.
I'm really glad to hear that, because but a smart idea to do some trial runs first. That's amazing that you got great friends to do one. And
those poor friends. Yeah. Well, they get free ramen out of it, so yeah, they get it's not a.
I'll be like, free ramen. Okay,
you're welcome to join the next trial when there is another one. Always trying to launch new ramen tours. So yeah,
nice.
Always need some guinea pigs. You'll get delicious ramen. Anyway, so yeah.
So when can we talk about the time frame?
For sure.
Start? When did that?
So. Yeah, I started doing the tours essentially 2018, around there. What was it? It was at the 2018, maybe end of 2017, whenever guides were allowed to be guides, because in Japan it's a little strict about it's also gray, but essentially I started that, and then had a great run. COVID hit, of course. The world was turned upside down, and things changed very dramatically overnight for all of us, of course, but maybe more so in the travel and hospitality space than any other, right?
So I'm trying to imagine, because this is tough, because especially in Tokyo, when you're doing your tours, there's a lot of great places. So how did you decide what are the spots to go first? How did you tailor for the clientele? It's a day? Is it a whole day?
So it's basically from 1 hour to 3 hours, and that's a great question. I think there's so many ramen restaurants, right? Tokyo, for everyone's reference and your reference, there's about 3,000 to 4,000 in Tokyo. The Tokyo metro area, if we include Saitama, Kanagawa, Chiba, it's about 8,000. So there's plenty of choices. I think for me, of course, it has to be delicious. They have to be, maybe open to receiving a group of people, right? Three, also it has to work logistically. And I say this because the original tours, I called it the Insider Ramen Tour, this tour format was basically I sit down with people for coffee for the first hour. Okay. We talk about ramen history, there's a ramen quiz, and I will present, maybe 5 ramen shops in that particular neighborhood. And I'll be like, hey, this is what this place is known for. I've got little graphs and stuff with their strengths. So that would be the Insider Ramen Tour. I took it, I looked at everything with a magnifying glass. So that was the first tour, right? But eventually what it evolved into, or I should say what became the most popular tour, was a ramen tasting tour where I would partner with ramen shops and provide small portions, 1/4 size of your standard ramen bowl, a mini ramen tour, if you will. So now the most popular tour is exactly that, visiting 3 ramen shops for 6 mini bowls. And for that, it definitely is important for me to work with ramen shops, that are open-minded, right? They, some ramen shops of that 8,000, let's say, would be like, what are you talking about? Small portions, why would we even bother? So all those things I mentioned, I think that's what basically brought me to the ramen tasting tour.
Because I can imagine that must have been a grind for you to go around to these ramen shops and be like, hey, can I
that's
I feel a little. I mean, I'm also outgoing as well. Hey man,
you would be fine. The same reason we're sitting in this beautiful bar. We have the sofas to ourselves.
You and I know that there are some amazing ramen spots where the master is, he's so proud and he's just kind of very strict. Right?
Yeah.
And you walk in and you're like,
I do things, it's intimidating, right? Even for me, someone that eats ramen all the time, as you've experienced too, right? You go into some of these places, they're definitely not open-minded. This is what I do, and this is what I'm going to do every day until I die. I mean, I'm not going to make small portions or otherwise, right? Let alone rolling up with 10 tourists for sure. So, what helped me, I mean, I have a sales background, and not that this was the one thing that helped, but I think, like, you know, looking at my lead list, if you will, I was like, okay, I go into a ramen shop, and because I'm eating so much of it, right, I'm also like taking mental notes. I'm like, okay, how are the staff? Are they like receptive to me? Are they receptive to the other customers? Is this ramen that I like something that necessarily visitors to Japan would like, right? Is there enough space if I am doing the tasting tour? You know, like, is it what... you know, do they take a break for lunch, right? Maybe, you know, some ramen restaurants will stop at 3, right? Reopen at 5. Some places, though, a lot of places I partner with, they'll be going all the way, you know, from morning until evening. So things like this, you know, I think allowed me to whittle it down to like a number of places to approach. And I was very fortunate because a lot of these places I had some relationships with. So it was an easier in from the beginning. But you're absolutely right in that I think a lot of places would be like, excuse me, what are you talking about? You know,
it's like get out of here, youngin'.
Yeah, what are you doing? Like, we're good, you know, like we don't need, we have our customers, you know, we're okay.
And
exactly.
It's hard because I think the same thing because when friends or family come visit me in Japan, I would take them to those specific shops. Yeah. And they also feel the intimidation too. Yeah. But they said, man, that was a great bowl of noodles. Yeah. And it's just like, I wonder how could we, you know, bring more, but maybe they just don't need it. They don't really.
Some of those places, yeah, they're like, you know, I think the places that are super small, right, and, you know, only are open for a limited time. Well, I say that like maybe only some places even 3 hours a day, right? Very short operating hours. Like those places, they're like, we're good. You know, it's kind of interesting because a lot of these places, like maybe the master chef there, right? The master is like, only I can make the ramen. No one else is gonna touch anything, you know. You there, you're gonna, you know, like basically deal with customer orders, but So that's great in the sense of like you can be assured of quality, right? It's that obsessive Japanese nature. You know, only I will deal with it. I am not gonna outsource this. The issue with that, though, is, of course, if you want to scale or something, or maybe have a bigger place, is that, yeah, you can't do that as much, right? So it's a tricky balance, I guess, is what I'm saying, right? We're so fortunate that the ramen is delicious as a result of that, but it also means that, you know, yeah, you do have to wait a little bit longer, maybe because one person is making the ramen, you know, so it kind of goes both ways, I guess, in that sense. So that's a very good point, yeah.
It really is. I do want to give a shout out of one shop that is near and dear to my heart. It's a shop that you've been to and you put on your blog.
Yeah.
And it was during like one of my darkest times when I was very poor. I didn't speak Japanese, and I was in my home. I was staying in a homestay family, you know, looking for a job. Yeah. And I was living in Ebara Nakanobu.
Yeah. Oh.
And I saw your blog post of Takano.
Yeah.
For the listeners, check out if you ever come to Japan. Frank and I will attest about Takano in Ebara Nakanobu. It's a mom and pop shop. Okasan and Otosan.
Yeah.
My homestay family, I see them as my aunts and uncle.
Yeah.
They're very close with them. So I was so down and out. I had no money. And I remember going to that shop and just I was just filled with joy. Eating ramen with my homestay parents, and they were talking to me. It was Mama Okasan was preparing the broth, and Otosan prepares the noodles. That's how they are. And just being there in this close-knit community, you know, as like you said, like many ramen shops are open only for 3 hours or so. I've never felt so accepted in a Japanese community, and that was the first time when I was like, I'm maybe really down in my luck right now. God damn it, I'm feeling like I'm part of a family right now.
That's a beautiful, beautiful story. I want to even ask you more about that. Like,
it is that I haven't been there recently.
Yeah,
it's still one of my favorite ramen shops.
And for everyone's reference, like this is like that is a perfect shining example, right? Because it is very much, as you said, like a mom and pop place. It also happens to be one of the top ranked ramen restaurants in all of Japan. It is like it's insane. Like it's.
And I know you now we'll get into it now. Because you're starting to do more with like instant ramen.
Yeah.
I went to my basket supermarket. They have their own instant ramen premium noodle set. I was like, that's Takano. That's awesome. And I bought one and I'm like, oh my gosh. It's the taste.
It's amazing how they can replicate that too, right? The technology and it's oh my god, whole other discussion. And it probably just that emotions you have talking about it, right? It's so great that of course that's there because you were there with your homestay family, right? But that coupled with amazing food, right?
It was
it's just overwhelming, right? It's just
we always talk about it as soul food, and that's what ramen is.
And that the way they prepare it, right, with just such care, right? And that's going back to that this recipe will die with me, right? Only I will make it. Takano represents it, right? Because she and she's basically the boss there, right? She's
just sweet.
And she's such a sweetheart, her being I'm gonna make this ramen, that. She is the soul of that place,
I was
right?
just so happy you visited it.
No, for sure. And that cannot be outsourced, right? Of course, if you want to scale all that, right? She is everything. Of course, they're a team and all that. But oh my god, just hearing that, I'm so happy to hear that.
Oh, good.
Amazing.
Did you bring clients to?
I have not, because the line is so long. It's insane.
3 hours.
It's crazy. No, I think if there was a disclaimer, it's just and it's it's just that weight, right? But as you said, even though people literally from all over Japan, right, will go there because it's one of the top ranked places, right? But it still retains that super local community vibe, right? Locals and people from across Japan loving it.
So I want to reflect that, bounce that question back to you. Is there a ramen shop that really means a lot to you?
That's a good question, and I get this of course a lot, right? And having eaten literally at thousands of places, it's so hard to pinpoint is there that one ramen shop that really speaks to me. I think just the horrible ramen is life quote. I'm gonna need 10 minutes to think about. I should have come better prepared. I'm trying to I'm digging in my database now.
Let's make it easier. We're in the Meguro-ku area. Around here. Let's promote Meguro-ku. Shoot out some of your tasty stuff. I noticed you talked about the one right there in Yutenji. The new one. I haven't been there yet.
Breakbeats.
Breakbeats.
So Breakbeats is amazing. Breakbeats, DJ Yanase, I believe his name is. He was a DJ in Canada, a Japanese guy, and he was, from my understanding, just making ramen at home as a hobby. Beautiful, very carefully constructed bowls. Fast forward to about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, he opens up a ramen shop in Yutenji, yes, where we are, Meguro-ku, and it is the talk of the town. Since opening, it's become so popular, and you can understand why. I went, the ramen is amazing. He is ticking all the boxes. It's beautiful ramen.
Your video that you made, by the way, I cannot look at your videos because it's just
well, I have the ramen shop to thank,
Oh my gosh! Just for example, Breakbeats. The video how you pan up. I'm like, I just ate lunch.
Always room for more. Always room for more. Squeeze in Breakbeats.
I'm gonna make it out there. Definitely.
You need to, and now they actually have a system where some popular ramen shops, right? You have to go in the morning to reserve or write down your name for a slot to come back later in the day. So when I visited, they didn't have that. But I think they're so popular to the point where, it's you have to do that now.
A lot of the big deals.
Yeah, and if you're already in Meguro-ku, it's fine. If you go there in the morning, you just hang out in Yutenji, it's fine. it's better than maybe waiting, for an hour or whatever, right? But yeah, they just recently introduced that. That's how popular they've become. Breakbeat's amazing.
Okay, great. Anywhere else?
If we're keeping in the Megacron, there's a number. Yeah, there's so many. I'll exclude any places I use on the ramen tours. But yeah.
Can I give a shout out? Recently,
yeah.
So I'm a big fan of the last 5 years of Tokyo Tsukemen.
Yeah.
And over there in Ikejiri Ohashi, Warito.
Yeah, Warito's so good.
But there's, I go there, I don't know, once every 2 months or so.
Yeah.
That place.
Warito is so good. Warito is one of the best skemen places in Tokyo.
So this is my next question, because I love tsukemen. And I don't.
And tsukemen is dipping ramen for everybody's reference. Yeah,
it's a dipping
deconstructed ramen, noodles and broth separate.
And so this is my trouble that I get. I wonder if you experience this trouble with clients. Is when family and friends come here and they've never had tsukemen.
Yeah.
I bring them to my favorite, like for example, Warito. Like even their friends would be like, "Why do I have to work? Why do I have to actually dip this? Like, just give me the bowl with the broth with the noodles in it." And I'm like, dude, just relax.
I think at that point, it's like you almost want someone to feed you. I think you still have to move the chopsticks or the fork or whatever it is. Maybe nothing again. Of course, like I'm sure your friend's a wonderful person, but yeah, there is a little more work involved. But if you think about also just walking to get there or whatever, it's like I don't think
but I was just
you're not running a treadmill. I haven't personally when I've eaten skemen with other people, right? But I think a lot of people will comment like, can't I just dip or toss the soup on top of the noodles? You can, but I will probably leave and not be able to visit again. I won't. No. Jokes aside, I don't want to be like, what is it, the soup Nazi from Seinfeld about it. It's like, no,
right.
like don't want to be strict to that level. But no, tsukemen is meant to be enjoyed in that way, right? The soup is, especially Warito, for example, right? The soup is so rich and potent, like it's not gonna work if you just dump the soup on top of the noodles. A little bit of the noodles at the time, and when you do that, just enough of the soup, that otherwise really potent and thick soup, is just clinging enough to the noodles, right? So it needs to be in dipping form. That's the whole point, right?
I think so. With let's say Warito or maybe other tsukemen shops, I feel some of those masters are like, we are a tsukemen shop, not ramen. We are tsukemen.
Yes.
If you want tsukemen, this is it.
Yes. Yes.
So I get that vibe with Warito. And I love it. It's just, I think maybe you can expand more on it's more about the noodle, isn't it?
That's a big part of it, right? Because when the noodles, and these noodles are normally thick, right? Super thick. They take a long time to make. I always joke about this, but if you're in a rush, don't order tsukemen, because like it could take over 10 minutes because the noodles are so thick to boil. You got to cool them down too, and I think this will be another gripe for people, right? Just like with soba, like noodles are in tsukemen meant to be cold. Actually, that's when they lock in the flavor. You can appreciate their texture more when they're cold. So absolutely, tsukemen, of course, the soup is amazing, but you definitely get to appreciate the noodles by themselves. And a lot of places nowadays, they actually recommend you eating the noodles by themselves without putting them in the soup, and maybe they might have some sea salt or something on the side, right? Enjoy those noodles first. So yes, absolutely. When they're not cooking in that soup, the texture is there, the flavor is there, and there are a lot of places, as you said, that will be like, we are a tsukemen shop. We also have ramen, but tsukemen is our signature dish, for sure.
Do you think, like, so in the Western world, the ramen boom is like still going on?
Yeah.
Do you think tsukemen is next?
From what I understand, and not having had a lot of ramen, let's say in California, for example, right? I know there are a couple of places in California that are doing tsukemen. Maybe there is still a little bit of that, like, why are these noodles cold? 2 stars. It's like, no, that's the way they're supposed to be. It's like there needs to be a little bit of education around it too. Same thing. Am I going to pour the soup directly on top? But I think, right now you have a tonkotsu boom, probably, right? Like spicy miso tonkotsu. Japan had the same, or let's say Tokyo had the same, right? So I think it's just going to take time. Maybe tsukemen will be the next thing for sure. All of these styles that have developed in Japan, you're going to see them make landfall in the U.S., other places around the world. Maybe Skemen will be part of that. Maybe Skemen is already becoming the next thing. Yeah.
Let's talk about what you've been doing now, because I know, the pandemic has been tough for everybody. But you did something interesting that I saw on for your company. You're sending instant ramen packages.
Yes.
I mean, brilliant. Can you work with that? Tell me how you thought about this, and because you couldn't do any tours, so how did that come about? Were you just walking around 7-Eleven and be like?
Essentially, that was part of it, right? I think I rediscovered the wonderful world of instant ramen. I ate a lot of it, growing up. We talked about Sapporo Ichiban, exactly, right? And of course, this is like a movie line, right? If I can't bring, if the ramen, if they can't enjoy the ramen here, I'll bring the ramen to Gun. It's very cheesy, but in a way, like another T-shirt. It's also going to be in the storeroom, probably, until I get a better quote, which I butchered earlier. I think no, it was exactly that, right? It's like, okay, I didn't always plan to be involved in e-commerce, but I think, COVID, of course, has taught us, especially those of us in the hospitality space, maybe even more so, that as a company, you need to have different revenue streams, right? COVID has been, of course, horrible for a lot of us, right? In so many different ways, but it allowed me to think about some other things, right? Instant ramen kind of came to mind because, just as you said, I'm walking around in a 7-Eleven, let's say. There are amazing instant ramen, and I think a lot of people, just like with the ramen world, right? People often think of instant ramen and maybe ramen in general as the super cheap, university college student, soup and noodles pack with flash fried noodles, right? Yeah, you have that here, of course, but as you know, the ones that you can get at convenience stores, for example, these are famous ramen restaurants, I always use this as an example. There's a Michelin star ramen restaurant with their own instant ramen. The top-ranked ramen restaurant in all of Japan has their own premium instant ramen. These are not flash-fried noodles. These are amazing soups because they're often separated into several packets. These are dehydrated toppings, So, yeah. Nothing beats the real thing, but how far instant ramen has become is insane. Much better than when I was a kid. So anyways, putting that together, and basically I've tried literally over 150 different types of premium instant ramen during the pandemic.
Warrior.
I've tried to be an instant ramen warrior as best as I can, and basically sending that to people abroad, even on a subscription basis. Hey, this regional ramen is from this area of Japan. This ramen is from this famous ramen shop. It's been fun. It's been its own adventure.
Plug it in, man.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So you can do the official plug.
I didn't have any ad spots.
If you'd like to buy, well, feel free to check me out. Yeah, instantramen.jp. If you type in instant ramen Japan, you can also find it on 5 a.m. Ramen or Tokyo Ramen Tours. I mentioned there'll be links there. But yeah, feel free to have a look. It's been interesting too, the whole e-commerce world.
I just saw, and just to add on, your selection for the packages, spot on.
Well, thank you. I try my best, and also because I'm eating them, right? Just as you. Yeah, it's I think I try and keep that level of
Probably one of my favorite ones in 7-Eleven is the nakiri.
The Michelin, yeah. Oh my god.
I remember the first time having it, I'm like, this is kind of like being at the shop.
It's crazy, right? I mean, it's not just because, again, those soup packets, right? Because they're separating everything. You've got those layers of flavor. It's insane, right? It's how is this instant ramen? And that was literally it's not just me and my sales pitch. Buy from the website. I'm being dead serious. When I rediscovered this world again, I'm like, what is going on here? How is this instant ramen?
I mean, just echoing back, I was just surprised that Takano had.
Yeah. Takano, there you go. One of the best places in Japan with their own instant ramen.
Yeah, let's finish this off. Now, what else? Are there anything else that you were thinking about doing in the future?
Yeah, there's a number of different projects in the works right now. Always trying to look at different ways to showcase the wonderful world of ramen in Japan. And at the moment, for example, I'm working on a number of different like ramen guides. So a more, let's say, concentrated version of, what is my blog and stuff, right? Even partnering with some Tokyo ramen shops to put coupons in what will be the first Tokyo ramen guide. I'm going to do several cities, but the Tokyo ramen guide will be first release, and that's going to be very soon. But basically a PDF version and also online access where you can log in and literally be like, oh, okay, in this area of Tokyo, I've got these ramen shops. This is what they're known for. So all the information, the database I have, if you will, in a more organized format for people that are looking to visit Japan. So that's a big thing right now that's being worked on.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, this is such a logical question, and I should have asked this earlier. Are you interested about making ramen? Like, are you?
That's a great question.
I was wondering about this before I came here. I'm like, why doesn't Frank make his own ramen?
I think I'm a much better eater of it, consumer of it, than I am a maker of it. But that's a great question. Of course, I've dabbled a little bit at home, but nothing to the level of these fantastic ramen restaurants that we've talked about, right? I think once. That would be another project I'd love to have, just to get an understanding, right? Of course, like, I've gone as deeply as I can, I think, in the ramen world. Of course, there's a zillion things to learn still, right? Even about ramen restaurants, regional ramen, whatever it is. But, that's a whole nother thing to dive into, right? That would only deepen my understanding of the world of ramen if I did a deep dive into that.
Bro, if you're into it, man, let's do a double team action. Let's do because I've always been I like cooking too. But let's do it if you want to
I would be down
and because I've been trying to do making ramen, not stamen, but ramen.
Yeah.
But it's just, you're right. It's just you gotta have that water, the alkaline water. You gotta have the right ingredients are important. Fresh ingredients, good ingredients. So, and I thought about this too, like just having a Mel's ramen food truck.
You should. That would be fantastic, man. I would be your regular customer.
Or just make ramen here in this tap room.
Why not? Why not? Where the sofas are right now, I would love to see that.
But yeah, that's. I was always wondering if you were interested because I'm pretty sure your community and your clients, everybody would support you for sure.
Or maybe it would be like the life is ramen, ramen is life shirts. It would be like Frank's ramen was the worst ramen I've. And jokes aside, as you said, it does. Ingredients are important. It takes a lot of time and dedication, as you pointed out, right? It's there's a difference between making ramen and, of course, making great ramen, like any cuisine, right? And it takes a lifetime in itself just to really, so I didn't want to do it half-assed, excuse my language, in that regard, right? But maybe focusing on one of the elements, right? Maybe you were focusing on soup to begin with, right? I think one thing I want to tackle is maybe noodles, right? That's just going to be my focus, right? Yeah, noodle making also takes up less space, not as stinky. You're dealing with, say, pork bones, right? My poor wife would, have to deal with the smell, open all the windows. So
I can hear her voice and then look at her face and be like, again?
Yeah, again. I'll be like, I'm sorry. I'll go back to noodle making. Maybe I'll just focus on toppings, right? I'll be like, I'm gonna be the best negi cutter, and negi are spring onions for everyone's reference.
I don't want to. I want to bring this back full circle just to end this. I don't want to give people ideas, but what? I think it was a Chef Striegl episode. I remember one of the ramen critics was saying ramen is like jazz, right? You got to play those empty spaces, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, going back full circle. Yeah. You mentioned about that La Paz bok choy.
Yeah.
Let's do bok choy fusion.
Why not?
I'll study in Iloilo for a year about how to make bok choy. Come back, you work on your noodle making. Let's make this happen.
I think we could, toppings are not something to overlook, but I think soup and noodles, right? That's going to be our cornerstone. You work on the soup in Iloilo. I will work on the noodles here. We bring, those two worlds. Exactly.
And then marriage.
Exactly. No, this is perfect. We'll start, with our little pop-up here, see how it goes, invite the Filipino community.
Dude, and probably goes down after like a day.
That's okay though. It was a grand day. We had fun.
Everyone's like free.
Yeah, we crashed and burned, but it's all right. We were wearing life preservers. We're good. We're good to go.
Dude, Craig, I really am just so happy that you came and just talk about.
It's been a joy being here.
I think everybody's gonna want to go check out your tours. When they come there and visit. I see that passion, man. Thank you, man.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. You have a wonderful podcast, and I'm glad that I could talk a little bit about ramen. And thank you so much for having me.
No worries, Craig. Thank you both. All right.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
For more information on the delicious ramen shops we talked about and more, and if you want to hear many ramen reviews that Frank has done, visit 5amramen.com. That's 5amramen.com. As well, if you're interested in taking one of his deep dive ramen tours here in Tokyo, please check out his websites. I'll put out all the links down into the show notes. You are listening to Made in Japan, Conversations with Meljo Catalan. For more information, questions, comments, and concerns, you can email me at japanmademepodcast@gmail.com, as well as on my social media networks, mostly on Instagram and Facebook, at Made in Japan Podcast. Thank you for listening. Feel free to leave a comment or a review, whether it's on Apple Podcast or on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. I would love to hear what you think about this pod of mine. Take care, everyone, and peace out.